His writings are not only literature, but a path of inner cultivation and deep reflection. Xuemo is a Chinese writer whose works focus on the exploration of the human heart, suffering, and awakening. Through his books, he shares insights rooted in traditional culture, spiritual practice, and real life experience. His words have helped many people find clarity, strength, and a deeper understanding of life. On this channel, we share his work through reading, reflection, and live discussions like this. We aim to bring these teachings into daily life, making them practical, relatable, and alive. If you are seeking inner growth, clarity, or a deep connection with yourself, you are in the right place. So today, I will introduce one book, Reclaim the Throne of Your Heart by Xuemo. It is one of the spiritual yoga series. And today we are going to explore a very important topic, a true merit and right view. What is merit? Where does it truly come from? And how does our mind shape everything? So let's begin by reading a passage and then we will reflect on it together. Some people neither perform good deeds nor are willing to help others, believing such actions bring no benefit to themselves. In truth, they fail to understand that goodness carries its force of return, just as evil does. These forces may not always be immediately visible, but they undeniably exist, and they shape the course of one's entire life. So this chapter, the topic is only when the heart is pure can true merit arise. And it is from the book Reclaim the Throne of Your Heart. So not just whether someone does good or not, but how they are relating to life itself. Because when someone believes that helping others brings no benefit, they are already seeing life through a very limited lens, a lens that only recognizes what is immediate, visible, and measurable. But life doesn't only function in what we can immediately see. There are movements, responses, and consequences that unfold quietly over time. And whether we notice them or not, they are continuously shaping us. So the real question is not, will I get something back right now? But rather, what kind of a direction am I setting for my life through this choice? But because every choice is not just an action, it is a movement of your whole being. And over time, these small, almost invisible movements accumulate. They form patterns, tendencies, and eventually what we call destiny. Not something imposed from outside, but something grow from within. So when someone chooses not to do good because they see no benefit, they are not avoiding loss. They are missing the opportunity to shape their own life in a different way. And that is something far more profound than immediate gain or lose. So people often speak of merit, but true merit is the natural reaction to one's actions. Just as striking wood with force causes pain in your hand, this is the reaction force of the action. Everything arises from action. When you do good, you will receive good in return. When you do evil, you will receive negative results. As the saying goes, you reap what you sow. So is there similar saying in your country? You reap what you sow. Yes. So here is a very different way of understanding merit. It's no longer something we try to collect, but something that naturally follows us, almost like a shadow, quiet, consistent, and inseparable from what we do. And the example given is very direct. When you strike something, force returns to you. Not because someone is judging you, but because it is simply how action works and how the karmic works. Every movement carries its own response within it. So, in this sense, life is incredibly fair, but not always immediately obvious. But the return does not always come in the same form or at the same time. But the direction is already set the moment the action is made. And this is why the phrase you reap what you sow is not just moral advice. Let me know if there is a similar saying in your culture as the you reap what you sow. You reap what you sow. It is a description of how reality functions at a deeper level, not symbolic but precise. And when you begin to see it this way, something shifts in how you live. You stop asking, what will I get? And start seeing, what am I setting in motion right now? And to the new friends here, please subscribe our channel. Thank you for your support. And it is also very important to see here is that cause and effect are not always immediately appear or linear. We often expect a direct return, do something good, and something good should happen right away. But life doesn't function in such a simple one-to-one way. Instead, every action enters a much larger field of conditions. It interacts with timing, environment, other people, and countless unseen factors. And from that complexity, results slowly begin to take shape. So sometimes what you do today may not show its effect tomorrow. It may unfold a month later or even in ways you don't immediately recognize. But that doesn't mean it is not working. It simply means it is still unfolding. And this is why understanding this mechanism change your patience with life. You no longer rush for visible outcomes. You begin to trust the process of what is being set in motion. And in that trust, your actions become steady, not driven by urgency or doubt, but by clarity. And that clarity itself becomes part of the cause you are planting. And what begins to emerge from this is a deeper understanding of how a life is actually formed, because actions don't just create isolated results, they gradually shape the person who is acting. And this is, I think, the most important. And over time, that shaping becomes something very stable. So action don't just create isolated results. They gradually shape the person who is acting. And it reminds me the saying from Master Tai Shi. Master Tai Shi once composed a verse: look up to the Buddha and attain perfection in character. When a person attains perfection, the Buddha attains perfection. This is the true reality. So the shaping of the individual is really important because this is indeed true. Without the cultivation of one's character, all efforts toward the transcendental dharma are in vain. So over time, that shaping becomes something very stable. Each action leaves a subtle important, not always visible, but in quietly influences how you think, how you respond, how you choose next time, and little by little, these imprints begin to form patterns. And when patterns repeat, they become habits. Habits begin to define tendencies, what you naturally incline toward without thinking. And eventually, those tendencies shape what we call personality. And from there, something even bigger takes form because personality influences decisions, decisions influence direction, and direction becomes life path. This is how what we call destiny is actually built step by step from within. So when we talk about doing good or doing harm, evil, it's not just about one outcome. It's about what kind of person you are continuously becoming through those actions. And that is something far more powerful than any single result. So some people refrain from doing good deeds or helping others, believing there is no benefit to them. In reality, they fail to understand that good deeds bring good reactions, and evil deeds bring negative consequences. These effects may not always be immediately apparent, but they exist and thus subtly shape the course of one's life. Take Leo Tolstoy, for example. He was not only a great writer, but also a man of profound compassion. His virtuous character was deeply embedded in his works, elevating them to timeless masterpieces. This greatness cannot be attributed to literary skill alone. In contrast, many, upon their death, leave no lasting impact, like flies passing through the void or the fleeting bloom of a night blooming cereus, leaving no trace behind. So this paragraph is from the book Reclaim the Throne of Your Heart by Mr. Xuemo. It is one of the spiritual yoga series and it is available on Amazon or on our online global shop, shop.xuemo.com. And you can search for Xuemo, Xuemo, yes, for this little yellow book. So what this brings us to is a very different way of looking at value and impact. Because a person's life is not measured only by what they achieve outwardly, but by what they carry within. And that inequality eventually expresses itself in everything they create. And this is why someone like Leo Tolstoy cannot be understood merely as a skilled writer. There are many people who can write well, but not all of them can touch something timeless in the human heart. Because what moves people is not technique alone, but the depth of being behind the words. And that depth does not come from talent alone, it is cultivated through how one lives, how one relates to others, how one holds the words within their heart. Over time, this becomes a kind of invisible substance that gives weight to everything that express. In contrast, some lives remain on the surface, busy, active, even productive, but without that inner grounding. And so when everything passes, nothing truly remains. It's not that they didn't do anything, but that what was done lacked depth, like something that appears for a moment, then disappears without imprint. Because without inner substance, nothing can truly endure. So in the end, what shapes a life is not just action, but the quality behind action, not just expression, but the state of being that gives rise to expression. And this is where true merit quietly reveals its power. And speaking about the actions and the actions, the things you do in your life, and also the imprint, maybe they just disappear without imprints. So I think we can ask one question, like, what kind of life am I actually living right now? Yes, it's a very quiet but honest question. What kind of life am I actually living right now? So am I just moving through time, reacting, responding, staying busy? Or is there something within me that is gradually becoming deeper, clearer, more grounded? Because the difference is not visible in a single moment, but it is undeniable over time. And maybe we don't need to answer it immediately, but just holding this question already begins to shift something inside. It brings a different kind of awareness into how we speak, act, and choose. Because a life that leaves something behind is not built in one big moment. It is built in small, repeated, almost invisible choices we make every day. And those choices are happening right now. So perhaps the real invitation here is very simple, not to become someone else, not to force anything, but just to begin noticing what am I cultivating right now within myself. So in our daily life, what kind of you or what kind of me, asking myself, are you actually cultivating? So what kind of you are you actually cultivating? Is it someone who reacts quickly, driven by habit and emotion, or someone who is becoming a little more aware, a little more steady, a little more clear? Because both are being built just in different directions. And there is no need to judge whatever you see. Even noticing honesty is already a very meaningful step because the moment you see, you are no longer completely unconscious. So if we come back to this moment, something become very simple yet very powerful. This very moment is not neutral. It is already a cause. Whether we notice it or not, something is being planted right now. It may be a thought, maybe the question we are asking ourselves, what kind of you, what kind of me am I cultivating right now? That thought, maybe, and a thought, even a subtle attitude, something very small, almost invisible, but over time, this is exactly how everything begins to take shape. So instead of waiting for a big opportunity to change ourselves, we begin to see that change is already happening in these tiny moments, in how we respond, how we think, how we choose right now. And this is just like you are choosing our channel to spend your time. It is like power of your life. It is a space where you can um, a space with clarity, and you can get inner strength and inner peace. So our channel is so different, and it is your choice whether to stay with us, or choose something very, more like entertainment. So, and this is where cause and effect becomes very alive, very real, not something distant, but something not also not something philosophical, but something we are participating continuously. So the question is no longer will there be a result. The question becomes what am I creating right now without even realizing it? Because that is already the beginning of everything that follows. So let's continue share the paragraph from the book Reclaim the Throne of Your Heart. To truly grasp this, one must be guided by the right view. For even ascetic meditational practice requires the illumination of right view. Consider this. If you have a friend who is a liar and you come to firmly believe that he is deceitful, this understanding usually shapes your perspective. With this view, you no longer trust his words, and in that realization, you are freed from his influence. Similarly, when you come to see that the world and the cycle of samsara are vast illusions, marked by impermanence and devoid of inherent self nature, like a fleeting dream, this understanding becomes your right view. Once you hold this view, the world loses its power to tempt you, and there is nothing left to cling to. This is the essence of right view. And if you're new here, please subscribe to our channel and stay with us. Here you can, if you're on the way to in the world, in the path, then this is the right place. And the passage I shared just now points to what it points to is something very more foundational than action. It is how we see. Because without the right view, even sincere effort can move in wrong direction. And with the right view, something begins to align naturally without force. And the example is very simple, but very precise. When you truly see that someone is not trustworthy, something shifts immediately. You don't need to resist them. You are simply no longer affected in the same way. This is important. Freedom here does not come from effort, but from clarity. It is not something you achieve by controlling yourself. It comes from seeing something as it is. It is very important to see something as it is. And in the same way, when this kind of seeing expands to the nature of the world, when you begin to sense its impermanence, its instability, its dream-like quality, then something that once felt solid starts to loosen, not because you force yourself to let go, not because what you are holding on to no longer appears the same. And in that shift, attachment naturally dissolves. So, right view is not an idea to believe in, it is a way of seeing that transforms your relationship with everything. It quietly removes the power things once had over you, and what remains is a kind of ease and a kind of freedom that is very real. And from this perspective, letting go is no longer something we try to force ourselves to do. It's not about pushing things away or convincing ourselves that we shouldn't care, because that kind of letting go still carries tension within it. And it's like holding on something you thought was valuable. And true letting go happens when something is seen clearly. When you understand its nature, its limits, its impermanence, and in that understanding, they need to hold on to simply fate. It's like holding on to something you thought was valuable, and then one day you realize it's not what you believe it to be. You don't need to force your hand open, it just relaxes. And this is what happens to me last year. It just relaxes. And you don't you don't want to hold on to some everything that seems very important in your past life, in your past experience. Yes. And this is why right view is so powerful, because it doesn't ask you to fight your attachments. It quietly dissolves them at the root. So that is why right view is powerful and doesn't ask you to fight your attachments. It quietly dissolves them at the root. So that is also why Mr. Xuemo's work is so important to modern individuals, because we may create the right view uh, through reading Xuemo's work, and we don't need to force ourselves to do the training and force ourselves to let go of the anything. And because a lot of us are used to the idea that growth must come through effort and struggle. Me too. And we have to push, discipline, and force ourselves into change. But what is being revealed here and through Xuemo's work is a completely different path. A path where understanding replaces force, where clarity gently transforms what effort cannot. And this is why works like Xuemo's carry a special kind of value. They are not just giving information or even just telling stories. They are slowly reshaping the way we see the world and ourselves. Because when the way you see changes, everything else begins to shift naturally. You don't need to fight every attachment one by one. You simply start feeding them in the same way. And over time, something very subtle happens. What once felt heavy, urgent, or hard to let go of gradually lose its grip without you even noticing when it happened. And this is also what happened to me when I continuing devoted myself in Xuemo, my Dr. Xuemo's philosophy. The, the things that feel very heavy and very hard to let go of just gradually loses its grip. And until Mr. Xuemo talked to me at some time, I realized that. So it is happening without you even noticing it. So continue reading Xuemo's work and continue devoting yourself in this culture is really important. You know, when you read a book, gaining knowledge and experience something bigger is totally different. So what's interesting is that for my personal life experience, that the change didn't come from trying to let go. It didn't come from forcing yourself to drop things or control your emotions. It happened quietly, almost in the background of your life. The things that once felt heavy didn't disappear all at once, but they gradually lost their weight, their urgency, their hold on you. And one day you simply noticed they are no longer the same. And that moment of realization is very subtle because you didn't achieve it in the way we usually think of achievement. You just grew out of it. And this is exactly why staying in this kind of field through reading, through reflection, through connection matters so much because it's not about one moment of insight, but a continuous influence, something that keeps reshaping you little by little. So it's not about pushing yourself to become better, it's about allowing yourself to stay close to what is clear, what is true, and over time, that closeness becomes transformation. And so that is also why it's so important to follow up and subscribe our channel and spend your time at this little space of the internet and uh, maybe something different will happen. Because our our page, our channel is not just to share information, but to create a different kind of environment, a place where you can return again and again and let something quietly shift within you, not through pressure, but through presence. So if something here resonates with you, you are very welcome to stay connected with us. You can follow, subscribe, and simply spend a little time here wherever you need. Because sometimes just being in a different field can already begin to change things. And we are not asking you to become anything or to force yourself into any path, any culture. Just to come, listen, reflect, and allow your own understanding to unfold. And maybe without even noticing when something begins to feel lighter. Okay, let's back to our topic today. It is about merit and right view. Let's continue reading the book. Furthermore, true merit arises from a pure mind. When you perform good deeds with a mind that is free from attachment and selfish intent, you cultivate merit. However, if your mind is not pure, tainted by desires or ulterior motives, you will only accrue blessings, not merit. So it's no longer just about doing good, but about the quality of the mind while doing it. Because the same action can carry completely different meanings depending on where it comes from. A pure mind does not calculate, does not seek return, does not try to become something through the action. It simply expresses itself naturally. Without adding extra intention. And in that naturalness, merit quietly takes shape. But when the mind carries something extra, expectation, identity, even subtle pride, then the action begins to shift. Even if it still looks good on the surface, and what is formed is no longer the same in depth. So this distinction between merit and blessing is not just about judging the action, it's about understanding the inner layer that gives the action its true nature. And that inner layer is something only we can see within ourselves. And this is where the cultivation becomes very real, very immediate, not somewhere far away, not something complicated, but right here in this moment, in this intention, in this heart. So our intentions are often not as clear as we think. On the surface, it may look like we are simply doing something good, but if we look a little deeper, there are often many subtle layers within it. Sometimes it's the wish to be appreciated. Sometimes it's the hope to be seen as a good person. And sometimes it's even a quiet expectation of return without us fully realizing it. And none of this is wrong. It is simply human. The point is not to criticize or reject these intentions, but to begin noticing them and honestly. Because the moment you see something already changed, you are no longer completely driven by that hidden layer. There is now a space between you and the intention. And in that space, a different kind of purity can begin to emerge. Not forced, not constructed, but naturally as the unnecessary layers start to fall away. And when these subtle layers begin to be seen and gradually loosen, something very natural starts to happen. You don't need to try to make your mind pure. Purity begins to reveal itself when what is not essential falls away. And from that place, action becomes much simpler. There is less calculation, less hesitation, less inner conflict. What flows out is more direct, more sincere, and more whole. And this is when merit quietly begins to form. Not because you are trying to accumulate it, but because the quality of your being has already changed. So merit is not something you chase in the future. It is something that naturally arises from who you are becoming right now, from the state of your mind in this very moment. And maybe this brings us back to something very simple. Not what should I do next, but how am I being right now as I do it? So there is a story that goes like this. A kind man offered food to the gods daily. Moved by his devotion, the gods descended and offered him anything he desired, wealth, power, or glory. But the kind man replied that he sought none of these. He wished only for purity of heart and happiness without asking for anything in return. The gods then said, what you seek is called pure happiness, something even we cannot possess nor bestow upon you. Why? Because pure happiness does not come from external sources or supernatural powers. It arises from the radiance of one's own pure and luminous heart. To attain it, one must transcend attachment to external objects and desires. Only by transcending these attachments can one experience ultimate liberation. True achievers are free from all attachments, including attachment to the wisdom of liberation itself. Yet they will never lose or forget the truth they have realized. For example, if someone knows that 1 plus 1 equals 2, this knowledge remains unshaken. Whether he is farting, sneezing, or ill, the truth of 1 plus 1 equals 2 stays with him. No matter how he manifests outwardly, it does not diminish his realization or his greatness. He remains, in essence, a saint untouched by the fluctuations of the external world. I am trying to bring my voice down here in the belly, so that is more easy. So the story from the paragraph begins to reveal is very different understanding of happiness. Because most of the time when we think of happiness, we immediately look outward. We think of something to gain, something to achieve, something to receive. But here the man refuses everything that is usually considered desirable. Not because those things are wrong, but because he sees something deeper. He understands that anything given from the outside will also pass. And what he is pointing to is something that cannot be given or taken away. A kind of happiness that does not depend on conditions, something that arises from the clarity and the purity within. And this is why even the gods say they cannot give it, because it is not an object, not a reward, not something transferable. It can only emerge when attachment begins to dissolve. So the path described here is not about gaining more, not about seeing through, not about adding something new, but about releasing what is not essential. And in that releasing, something original begins to shine. And when realization becomes stable, it is no longer something you need to hold on to. Like knowing 1 plus 1 equals 2, it doesn't require effort to remember. It simply becomes part of how you see everything. And from there, life may still appear ordinary on the surface. There may still be emotions, reactions, even imperfections, but something fundamental is no longer shaken. And that is why true freedom does not mean becoming someone else. It means no longer being bound by what once defined you, remaining clear even as everything else continues to change. Okay, let's continue sharing the paragraph. The book Reclaim the Throne of Your Heart. So there is a saying in Tibetan, a saint performs earthly affairs, but his heart remains holy. Though he may engage in the daily tasks of the world like any ordinary person, he is ever immersed in his own radiant, pure nature, untouched by worldly concerns, free from any worry or attachment. Therefore, one must cultivate a pure mind to generate true merit, but it is essential not to become attached to the pure mind itself. Our task is simply to recognize the true mind and then abide in it. When you abide in the true mind, all of your actions become the wondrous expression of that mind, naturally generating positive reactions and merits. However, one must be especially vigilant not to mistake nihilistic emptiness for the true mind. To abide in nihilistic emptiness is like being a stone, no matter how still or undisturbed for hundreds or thousands of years, no merit arises, and enlightenment remains unattainable. So, what in the saying here it impressed me a lot. A saint performs earthly affairs, but his heart remains holy. And what this brings in now is a very refined understanding of practice. It is no longer about separating yourself from life, but about how you are within life. Because the outer activity may look the same, but the inner state is completely different. A saint may still be doing ordinary things, working, speaking, interacting, but inwardly there is a stability, a clarity, a kind of quiet presence, not caused by circumstances, not lost in reactions. And this is why the text emphasizes something very important. Even purity itself is not something to cling to. Because the moment you grasp it, it becomes another form of attachment. The invitation is much simpler, yet much deeper, to recognize what is already true within you, and then to rest there without adding anything extra. And when you're truly resting in that, action becomes effort, effortless, not passive, not withdrawn, but naturally aligned. Everything you do becomes an expression, not a struggle. But here comes a very subtle warning. Stillness alone is not realization. It emptiness without clarity can become lifeless, like a stone. Because the true mind is not blank, it is aware, alive, luminous. It sees, it knows, it responds. It is empty, but not empty in a dead or numb way. So the path is very precise, not lost in activity, but also not lost in emptiness. To remain clear, present, and quietly aware in the midst of everything. So we spoke about merit, about the purity of the mind, and about right view. But more than that, we are really pointing back to something very simple, the state of the heart. In this very moment, there is nothing we need to force, nothing we need to rush, just a gentle returning again and again to clarity, to awareness, to what is already here, and maybe without even noticing when something begin to soften, to open, to become lighter. And that in itself is already part of the path. So thank you for being here, for listening, and for sharing this space. If this resonates with you, feel free to stay connected with us, and we will continue this journey together. Okay, Reclaim the Throne of Your Heart by Xuemo. It is available on Amazon and on our global online shop, shop.xuemo.com. Yes.